Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wa salat, wa salam, wa rasulullah. Welcome to We Are All Okay Wednesday. And the topic today is letting go or not holding on. Wisdom returns when we stop gripping the story. We suffer not from the event, but from the story we hold about it. Wisdom emerges when we release the grip on thought. Peace is our natural state when we stop holding on. And the wording for this, alhamdulillah, is very profoundly accurate, subhanallah, in how it really is. A lot of the time when we've been through things, especially with people, and we're not willing to let go of the story around it, mostly out of perhaps fear of it happening again, or out of fear that if we're too forgiving, they'll do it again, and that we're letting them behave badly. We kind of hang on to that story, and the only one that's left in pain is us. And sometimes the other, whoever else might have been involved, is completely oblivious to the fact that we're holding on to this story and causing ourselves our own pain. And then I get asked the question, but how do I let go? It's so hard, right? So let's unpack this today, inshallah. And I love the title, Letting Go or Not Holding On, because we actually have a choice of not holding on to the story in the first place, which is so much easier, right? And it really comes down to understanding how it all works. So let's go back to the beginning of something happens. Things happen, don't they? And sometimes some pretty uncomfortable, horrible things, frustrating things, hurtful things, awful things happen. And it's how we interpret those things is how we will experience them. So, for instance, if somebody is saying, well, actually, we had some great examples last night in one of our classes. One sister um, had a neighbor who said some pretty horrible things. And you could see it, because as she was telling us about it, that it still upsets her to think about it, because the tears came out of her eyes as she was sharing with us, right? Now, as we heard her share the story, what we heard was her neighbor is a horrible person, because we know her and we don't see her as a bad person. We think she's lovely. And so what we saw was that this neighbor's off their rocker, a mean person, says things that are completely unnecessary to say, and horrible things that, yeah, are very hurtful in the way they're said. But we didn't see it as personal to her. We saw it as something that's indicating the way this person thinks. Because this sister that we're talking about, she has certain disabilities that make her stand out, and this neighbor was making snide remarks about her disabilities or about the way she looks. So that's mean, right? But she couldn't see it as being that the other person has a problem. She was seeing it as this person is being mean to her. So taking it personally. And so it hurt for her. So she found it really hurtful and was hanging on to this story around what happened. To the extent that when she looks out her window, all she can see is her neighbor's place, and it keeps reminding her. So she's suffering now, not because the neighbor is doing that now, but because she's holding on to a story around it. It's playing over and over and over again in her head. And so even looking out of her window brings back the story. And so she's feeling unhappy a lot of the time. Now, had she experienced it in a different way, and what we tried to point her to last night, but I don't think we succeeded, was how what happened was really pointing to the other person. So if we had that understanding that people behave like that because there's something going on with them, somewhere where they're got some messed up thinking, and somebody then says something like that to us, we may not make a story around it and we may not find it painful. In fact, we might be in a space where we could even say something quite witty back to put them back in their place, which is usually what I attempt to do when someone is like that with me, especially when it's around Islamophobia or something like that. Um, I think a good one of my friends did one day was out shopping. Some guy says, go back to where you came from. And I think she said something like, because this person had an accent, well, when you buy your ticket, I'll buy mine, something like that. So having that kind of ability to see that what what's going on as being the problem with the other person rather than ourselves leads to potentially not making a story or hanging on to a story that you need to let go of in the first place. And realizing that the only one who is really suffering from this story is ourselves is the pathway to letting go. And then our wisdom emerges when when I like the wording here, when we release the grip on thought, right? So currently, a couple of my well, actually, Wanda here is doing it too. Wanda and Janine and Daniela and I are all doing an intensive with Dr. Bill Pettit, who's a psychiatrist. And one of the things that he's always repeating is about not taking thought so seriously. When we stop taking thought so seriously, then we're much healthier. So, our story that we hold around an event is the way we are thinking about it. It is our thought. When we start realizing thought is not reality, thought is what we create reality with, but it's not actually reality. And realize that it's not the truth. Thought is just the way we are thinking. Then we stop taking it so seriously, it becomes much easier to let it go. When we release grip on thought, right? See how beautiful that is to release grip on thought. Thought is not reality. It is just the means by which we create our reality. And so, whichever way we use thought, we will create that sort of reality. So, if we're gripping hold of that person was so mean and they could do it again and they must say sorry, and we holding on to, sorry about my voice getting croaky and croaky, not much I can do about it. I'm afraid I was quite sick last week. um, so yeah, um, the more we grip hold of these thoughts, the unhealthier we become, the more we suffer, the more we realize it's just thought, the more we don't take it seriously. We release the grip on those thoughts. the more we can come back to our wisdom, back to our well-being, back to our natural, peaceful state, when we're not holding on or gripping on to the story around what happened. So the key thing is, we are not saying these things don't happen. Many, many, many things happen. Many very testing and challenging things happen. And that's the essence of this dunya, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said He will test us in this dunya. So we've got to expect there's going to be lots of challenging things happen. But how we experience them, that's where we have a choice. We don't have to suffer them. We can let go of the grip of thought, not create a story in the first place, or if we notice ourselves creating a story around it, we can let go of that story and move on. Does it mean we never have feelings or we become emotionless? Nope, that's not the goal. Because most, more than likely, in the moment when something's happening, we're likely to have some feelings. And sometimes when we might think back on it, we might also have some feelings. The point is that we never have the feelings in the driver's seat running the show, because when that happens, that's when we do and say things that are displeasing to Allah. What we want to do is continue to navigate from a place of wisdom, where wisdom is in the driver's seat. And our feelings are there, but manageable. They haven't taken over. They haven't taken charge of the situation. Alhamdulillah. So I'd love to hear the questions that you might have around this topic. Anyone's got any questions, feel free to get onto the mic or type them in the chat. Any questions? I usually get a lot of questions of, yeah, but it's not that easy, is it? The reality is it can be that easy, because it's not about making ourselves do it. It's about, it comes from a higher level of thinking and awareness of how it works. SubhanAllah, and it works in that we're experiencing our reality through the way we're thinking about it. So when we think about it differently, we'll experience it differently. Was that you putting a hand up, Shazia? I saw a hand sort of go across the screen.
Yes, assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa barakatuh.
Yes, subhanallah. My question is, when we let go of the story and the experience, we come from our wisdom, and that is not a reality. That is, we are thinking, we're feeling it through our thought, but the person does it over and over again, the same thing. So
Okay, so this is two separate things, and it's a really good question, because yes, that's where a lot of confusion sits in. So what we're talking about is our inner world, right? What we're talking about is the inner world. We're not talking about the outer world. Because when we come back to wisdom, then we can deal with the outer world in a wiser way. Now, it could well be that this person who's doing something over and over again needs a limit set, and then you're holding a limit. And that's where the importance of the wisdom comes in, is because we have a greater success. We're able to do it in a much better way, and a way that may work more effectively when we set and hold limits from a place of wisdom. Does that answer the question there, Shazia? Because it's not about what the other person says or does. It's about our internal response that we're talking about here.
yes, subhanallah. So we setting the limit, that was crossing somewhere like a tangent in my circle, like it's about that, and holding it with wisdom.
Yeah, that's right. So it's not holding on to the story, but it is holding on to a limit. Because holding onto the story is what keeps us out of our wisdom.
Yes, subhanallah. And then when we're holding on to that limit and the person in front is just going completely off board, we still stay in our wisdom and have tawakkul on Allah and
Yep.
just communicate with wisdom the limit.
Yep. And we keep holding the limit. And this is where I think we struggle the most. Is not so much that first setting of the limit, it's the holding the limit.
Yeah.
Because holding the limit is about staying in our wisdom, and it is about reiterating the same limit without having to get into lectures or convincing or anything like that.
Hmm.
So let's just pick an easy example. Say one of our adult children is um, speaking to us in a rude way, right? So we set the limit and we say, it's not okay to speak to me like that. When you're ready to speak to me in a respectful way, I'm happy to talk to you. That's setting the limit. Then they keep going. It's like, I'm not willing to talk to you until you're ready to speak nicely. And then they keep going. And it's like, maybe you just stick your hand up and nod your head and shake your head. Like, it's just reminding them, I'm not budging. When you're ready to speak respectfully, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere, but I'm not going to respond when you speak like that.
Yes, subhanallah. Subhanallah, yes. Uh, I would just share that I I experienced it, but it was standing behind a reversing car. Subhanallah.
Standing behind what, Jazia?
A reversing car. I'm like, I'm not budging from here, subhanallah.
Oh, okay. Yes, well, you do have to take personal safety into consideration, and I don't recommend setting limits in an unsafe physical environment.
Yes, subhanallah. That was coming from trusting
Yes.
the person and tawakkul, like that person needed that I trust that person so much,
Yep.
subhanallah. Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, Jazakallah khair, like it actually helped me a lot. That was, I was confused what I did. Was it from ego or from setting limit? And I was calm. So it was from setting limit. Yeah.
Good.
Jazakallah khair.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. And good question, because I do think that we tend to get mixed together, the internal and the external. And what we're talking about in this topic is the internal shift that's needed so we can take charge of the external situation. And we don't tell you what to do in the external aspect of things, because once you're in that state of wisdom, Allah is always guiding you, and you're now in a condition to be able to listen to how Allah's guiding you and to follow that. So you don't need us to tell you what to do on the outside. That's why we just focus on the inner work.
Yes, subhanallah. I couldn't come to alumni, Sister Catherine, yesterday. I was so wanting to. And now I can actually do a topic for my entire learning from Back to the Fitra from yesterday's experience.
Alhamdulillah.
Let's, alhamdulillah, let's let it. I'm waiting for it to unfold completely. And then, inshallah, maybe I'll make a topic of it, subhanallah.
Well, if you have a topic, go into the alumni and put down your date for being part of Resilient Families Ramadan.
Oh, yes, inshallah. Inshallah.
That'd
I'm
be
having some
perfect.
patience. I'm waiting, like I'm on that watching movie kind of thing and look waiting for the next thing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inshallah khair. So
Well, by
inshallah.
Ramadan, it should have landed quite well. So
Yeah,
I think it's
inshallah.
best to go and book yourself in.
Yes, inshallah. Yeah.
Sounds like
Jazakallah.
a fantastic opportunity to discuss it, inshallah.
Inshallah. Inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
Wayaki sis. Anyone else have a question today? If not, I would love to
I
hear
did
a
raise
take.
my hand.
Oh, Abdul Bari, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I was wondering, is it oftentimes when you're talking about the exchanges between the internal world and external world just now, is it oftentimes the one has to precede the other, i.e., the internal word being in wisdom and then the external word, or can they actually take place simultaneously?
Well, if you stay in your wisdom, then yes, simultaneously. There doesn't have to be a order in that one comes before the other. It's about self-awareness, isn't it? Because if you don't make a story about an incident, then you'll stay in your wisdom, right?
Yeah, right, right.
And so you'll just handle it.
Right, right. And I was wondering also, like, may Allah protect us all when you were talking about, like, obviously setting the limits in safe situations, and may Allah not put us in situations where they're actually physically unsafe and stuff like that. But I was wondering, in these kind of situations where, like, your wisdom tells you you set the limit, but it's not necessarily safe, um, how do you advise in these kind of situations? Because obviously, maybe your wisdom tells you you have to set the limit, but it's not safe. But then also not setting the limits might make you think and feel that, like, oh, I'm not worthy and stuff like that, and then it's a rabbit hole.
Yeah, so, um, just like Shazia recognized in her situation that she was safe. Um, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who knows, right? So if we're in our wisdom and we're being guided by Allah to get out of there, then we get out of there. If we're being guided by Allah to stay put and set the limit, we stay put and set the limit because Allah knows best. It's a feeling because I've been in a situation where I could have been really badly hurt, but I knew in my heart I was safe. And so I stayed and held the limit. But in another situation, if I had that sense that I'm not safe, then I remove myself because
Mm,
when you're down a rabbit hole, however, it may not be clear whether it's safe or not. And that's, of course, when we can get ourselves into a mess and a muddle, which is why we want to get to this higher level of understanding of our human experience so that we don't go down rabbit holes, because that is, of course, one of the repercussions can be that we don't recognize when we're not safe.
right, right, right. And I think even what you said makes sense, even when it's muddy. Like about removing yourself. Like if it's not clear whether you're safe or not, maybe just getting out of there, removing yourself could be the best thing as
Ab-
well, because
yeah,
it's still
so
unclear.
yeah, so that's the other thing about setting limits is we often believe there's an urgency to set a limit in the moment, but the reality is a limit can be set at any time. There's no rush. Like we can come back to the situation when it's safe and when it's calm and go, okay, that's not okay. That wasn't okay. What are we going to do about that? Like, we don't have to set the limit in the moment necessarily. And so, this is a misconception I think that we can sometimes hold, is that if I don't do it now, I'm not going to do it. If it's not safe, but I guess the safest option is to get out of there and set the limit later.
Subhanallah, you mentioned a very good point. A lot, how many times a lot of us fall into, like, I have to do it now and I have to do it here. And like if you don't do it now and here, the other person could take advantage, etc. But as you said, it doesn't have to be urgent. It can be at any time, you decide. So that's a very good point. Jazakallah khairan.
Wayakum. And this is sometimes a struggle in families, because sometimes I recognize it's not the right time to have a conversation with a particular family member, and everybody else is like waiting to see me do it. and then getting angsty because they're thinking the other one's getting away with it. It's like, no one's getting away with anything. I know when it's the right time to have the conversation. And you don't have to be a witness to it because it's not your business. It's mine as the parent, right? So this is where we have to also be, have that certainty in our mind that we know what we're doing so we can fend off all the spectators. Alhamdulillah. All righty. So let's have some takeaways. Anyone got a takeaway? Sister Sonia or Roni? All good today? Well, I hope you found this a helpful topic, and I look forward to sharing again a new topic with you next week, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.